Now that we have everything set up, you'll notice that as soon as we add something, this doesn't go away in here, so we feel like we didn't actually submit it. So it might be kind of important to also notice or notify the user that that is happening. So before I do all of this goodness, I'm going to say var restaurant input equals document.getElement, this whole thing right here. I'm not going to copy it. I'm just going to put it right there. So we get the actual input element itself stored in the input restaurant input variable. And then I'll say restaurant name equals restaurant input dot value, like this, so that the value gets stored in here. But then we're going to reset restaurant input dot value equals nothing, an empty string, so that now what we're doing is we're storing the element, the actual HTML element itself, in this restaurant input variable, and then we're getting the value of it and storing in a variable called restaurant name, and then we're resetting the value to an empty string, so it looks like when they submit that their answer goes away, so we don't keep updating the Firebase with like a bunch of different things. So I'm gonna get rid of this McDonald's one also really quickly. Let's go. Okay, cool. I like that. Let's add Subway to it. So I'm gonna save this and let's just make sure it works. Come in here and I'm gonna refresh this guy, and we're going to write Subway. Click submit, and it goes away. Cool. And then in here I should see Subway. Lovely. The returning actually isn't going to return anything. You'll notice it doesn't really return anything here. When we run the function, it returns nothing because we're not running it in the console anymore, and we're not console.logging it. So we don't even need to return it. I was just doing that initially to show you what the key looked like. So technically we don't need to return anything at all. It's a really good question. We don't need to do this right here. I just did it just because. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter. You can get rid of that return statement. It'll be totally the same. Cool? Cool. So now that we've figured out how to update our database, let's start reading from the database also. As soon as we load the page, we'll read from the database and update our home.ejs page with all the data we need. Cool? Cool. So you'll notice, even though we can update the database, we have no way of reading from the database. We have no way of updating our home screen with information from the database. Now we can do this on the client, but I think it'd be a fun little exercise to do it on the server instead.
Which one is easier?
You know what? They're both difficult because there is no better. I would say that in this case, it's a matter of whatever you feel is right. Now, one of them is going to reload an EJS template every time, and one of them is just going to update the DOM with vanilla JavaScript. But in this case, we're going to update the EJS template every time there is a change in the value at the reference we're going to find in a second. So I'll show you exactly what I mean. That was a lot of vocab that we didn't need to include in there. So instead, I'm just going to exit out of all these files, and we're going to go straight to the server.js right here. We haven't touched our server.js in a hot minute, have we? Look at this. Oh, let me exit out of this thing. Okay, my bad. Fixed it. Now, we are going to use our server to listen for any changes on the database, any changes to the values at the restaurant's reference, and we're going to re-render the home.ejs page with all of the data from whatever restaurants are being added. Now to do that, we're going to have to head into our main GET request with the index, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that part right there that says response.send whatever, and we are going to update this with a little bit of Firebase data. Now on the server, we didn't call it Firebase. What did we call it? Firebase admin. But we already stored the database as var database equals firebase admin.database. If you didn't do that, go ahead and do that right now. right below where we created the admin account, the service account, and we updated the Firebase admin, and we initialized the app with our proper information. If you don't have any of this info here and your proper key, it won't work, but if you do, you should be good to go. So you should save an instance of the database object by saying var database equals Firebase admin, or whatever you call this, dot database, just like we did on the front end. Now once you're doing that, you can come down to the main GET request route where it says app.get, and we can start to listen for data. So we're going to be working on the server in this video, and because of that, I'm actually going to end this video here, and we're going to finish up the server-side code in the next video. Cool? Questions, comments, concerns? Love it.